Someone wins 4 gold medals for their country, receives a parade down Fifth Avenue, then watches every commercial opportunity disappear within months. What does that say about who gets to profit from their own success? August 1936. Fifth Avenue stretches ahead like a river of celebration. Paper falls like snow from office windows. Jesse Owens sits in the back of an open car, 4 gold medals heavy in his hands, watching a million faces pressed against barricades. They shout his name until their voices break. They reach toward him as if touching greatness itself. The parade moves through Manhattan's financial district. Men in suits lean out of bank windows applauding. The same men who control endorsement budgets. The same men who decide which athletes appear on cereal boxes. They wave now, enthusiastic. Tomorrow their enthusiasm will find other directions. 3 days later, Jesse sits across from Eddie Cantor's representative in a midtown office. $40,000 waits on the table, more money than most Americans see in a lifetime. Entertainment contracts spread like playing cards. Broadway invitations stack in neat piles. The representative's smile never wavers, but his eyes keep drifting to the door. When you picture winning 4 gold medals for your country and then watching corporate doors close without explanation, what word comes to your mind? Write it in the comments. Please subscribe to the channel. These stories remain visible because people choose to keep them visible. The phone calls begin that same week. Polite voices explaining delays, scheduling conflicts that suddenly emerged, market research indicating consumer hesitation. The language stays professional, but the meaning cuts clean. Celebration ends where profit begins. Jesse returns to his hotel room each evening, watching white Olympic swimmers appear in newspaper advertisements. Divers endorse breakfast cereals. Runners promote athletic equipment. Their faces beam from magazine covers, selling everything from soap to cigarettes. His own face remains absent from every campaign. He sits by the window, looking down at the street where strangers still approach for autographs. They want to touch the legend. They want photographs with the man who embarrassed Hitler. But the executives who control advertising budgets want something different entirely. They want distance. The contracts on his hotel desk grow cold. Entertainment offers that seem certain begin requiring additional meetings. Those meetings require rescheduling. The rescheduling never finds convenient dates. Jesse watches the opportunities drift away like confetti after a parade, understanding that celebration and access operate by different rules. His amateur status hangs by a thread. Athletic officials watch every conversation, every handshake with potential sponsors. They hold his future like a weapon, ready to strip away his right to compete if he accepts what other athletes take for granted. The choice clarifies with brutal efficiency: stay poor and pure, or risk everything for the money he earned with his feet. The hotel room fills with silence, broken only by distant traffic. 4 gold medals sit on the dresser, catching streetlight through thin curtains. Outside, America continues celebrating its Olympic hero. Inside, that same hero discovers the difference between being honored and being invited to profit. September 1936. Jesse sits in Eddie Cantor's manager's office on West 45th Street, watching $40,000 turn into a number on paper. The entertainment contract lies open between them like a bridge to financial security. 6 months of work. Radio appearances, theater bookings, more money than his sharecropper father earned in 20 years. Cantor himself leans back in his chair, hands folded. America's biggest entertainer. The man who sells out theaters from coast to coast. His smile carries the warmth of 1,000 spotlights, but something flickers behind his eyes, a hesitation that wasn't there yesterday. The phone rings. Cantor's manager answers, voice dropping to whispers. Jesse watches through the office window as Broadway pulses with afternoon crowds. Men in suits hurry past carrying briefcases full of contracts. Women in furs step out of black cars, heading toward matinee performances. This is where careers begin. This is where fame converts into fortune. Across town, white Olympic swimmers pose for Wheaties photographs. The cereal company's advertising budget flows toward heroes with the right complexion. Swimmers who embarrassed no dictators. Athletes whose victories feel safe to celebrate in American living rooms. Cantor's manager hangs up, returns to his desk with the expression of a man delivering unwelcome news. Market research, he explains. Focus groups expressing concern. Sponsors worried about consumer reaction. The language stays polite, but Jesse hears the truth underneath. His face doesn't sell breakfast cereal. 3 Broadway producers call that same week. Each conversation begins with enthusiasm. The Olympic champion, the man who outran Hitler's ideology. But enthusiasm requires translation into ticket sales. Theatre owners need audiences who feel comfortable watching Jesse Owens perform. Those audiences, apparently, remain theoretical. Jesse walks Times Square that evening, watching his name disappear from marquees before it ever appeared. Electric signs announce shows starring performers who never embarrassed foreign dictators, never created diplomatic complications, never forced America to confront its own contradictions about equality. The Cantor contract expires without signature. $40,000 evaporates into executive excuses and scheduling conflicts. Jesse returns to Ohio with the same 4 gold medals and significantly fewer options. The entertainment industry moves forward without him, casting actors who look more like their target audiences. White Olympic teammates continue appearing in advertisements. They endorse athletic equipment and energy drinks. Their victories sell products without creating uncomfortable conversations about American hypocrisy. Jesse's victories, meanwhile, remain too complicated for commercial purposes. In Cleveland, Jesse opens his mailbox each morning, hoping to find offers that never arrive. Hollywood scouts pursue other athletes. Advertising executives choose safer faces. The entertainment industry protects its profits by avoiding performers who remind customers of democracy's failures. His amateur status hangs by a thread, but the professional opportunities that would justify risking it continue vanishing. Jesse faces a calculation that other athletes never consider. Sacrifice certain poverty for uncertain wealth, or maintain eligibility for competitions that might provide his only remaining platform. The 4 gold medals sit on his kitchen table, catching morning sunlight through thin curtains. Outside, America continues celebrating its Olympic heroes. Inside, those heroes learn which celebrations convert into cash and which remain purely symbolic. August 16th, 1936. 8 days after his final gold medal. Jesse stands in a Stockholm hotel lobby, reading the telegram that ends his athletic career. The Amateur Athletic Union's decision arrives in stark black letters, suspended indefinitely. No appeal process, no reconsideration. The organization that controls American track and field has spoken. Avery Brundage orchestrated this moment with surgical precision. The AAU president watched Jesse's every commercial conversation, every handshake with potential sponsors. White Olympic athletes sign endorsement deals without scrutiny. Jesse's pursuit of the same opportunities triggers immediate punishment. The trap reveals its design with brutal clarity. Accept commercial offers. Lose amateur status. Reject commercial offers. Remain poor while representing a country that celebrates you but refuses to pay you. The system ensures Jesse's financial desperation while criminalizing every attempt to escape it. Fellow Olympians board planes heading home to endorsement contracts and corporate partnerships. Jesse boards a different plane, carrying 4 gold medals and a suspension notice. His teammates will appear in advertisements within weeks. His face disappears from all commercial consideration, permanently. Many public injustices were quietly forgotten. Please subscribe to the channel if you believe these moments deserve to be preserved. Athletic officials justify the suspension with language about purity and amateurism. These same officials allow white athletes to receive under-the-table payments for decades. They permit jobs that require no actual work. They define amateurism as whatever preserves their control over athletes who generate millions in revenue. Jesse's suspension creates a different category of punishment. Other athletes violate amateur rules and receive warnings. They negotiate settlements. They find administrative solutions that preserve their eligibility. Jesse receives permanent banishment for attempting what others accomplish routinely. The Swedish exhibition tour continues without him. American track stars perform for European crowds, earning appearance fees disguised as travel expenses. Jesse watches from hotel windows as his former teammates board buses heading toward events he can no longer attend. His athletic career ends not with injury or age, but with bureaucratic execution. Back in America, newspapers report his suspension in brief paragraphs buried near sports scores. The same publications that celebrated his Berlin victories now treat his punishment as routine administrative business. Public attention moves toward other stories, leaving Jesse's exclusion to unfold in relative silence. Corporate executives breathe easier. Jesse's suspension removes their dilemma about associating with America's most complicated hero. They no longer need to explain why they avoid endorsement deals with the man who embarrassed Hitler. His amateur status elimination provides convenient cover for decisions already made. The suspension creates institutional precedent. Future black athletes learn the boundaries of acceptable ambition. They understand that certain victories come with invisible penalties. They discover that representing America successfully can trigger punishment rather than reward. Jesse returns to Ohio carrying gold medals that no longer guarantee access to the sport that made him famous. Amateur athletic organizations control every track, every meet, every opportunity to compete. His suspension doesn't just end his career, it erases his ability to remind America of his talents. The hotel room in Stockholm empties as other athletes depart for lucrative homecomings. Jesse packs his medals carefully, understanding that these pieces of metal represent both his greatest achievement and his professional death sentence. Outside, European crowds still cheer American Olympic heroes. Inside, one hero discovers that heroism operates by different rules depending on the hero's complexion. October 1936. Jesse walks to his mailbox each morning in Cleveland, hoping to find offers that never arrive. His neighbors watch from kitchen windows as America's Olympic hero retrieves bills and advertisements addressed to other families. 4 gold medals buy no groceries. International fame generates no income. Hollywood talent scouts pursue every other athlete from Berlin. Swimmers appear in motion pictures. Divers sign studio contracts. Track stars receive screen tests for upcoming films about American heroism. Jesse's phone remains silent. His agent stops returning calls. The entertainment industry discovers urgent scheduling conflicts whenever his name surfaces in meetings. Corporate boardrooms across America hold identical conversations. Marketing executives spread demographic studies across mahogany tables. Focus groups report consumer hesitation about black spokesmen. Advertising budgets flow toward athletes who remind customers of victories without complications. Wheaties executives select Olympic heroes for cereal box covers. Jesse's image never reaches consideration. The breakfast company celebrates American athletic achievement while carefully defining which athletes represent acceptable American values. Their choices speak louder than any public statement about racial policies. Sports equipment manufacturers court every Olympic medal winner except one. Jesse's endorsement would sell running shoes to the fastest humans on Earth. Instead, companies choose athletes whose victories feel safe to commercialize. They avoid associations that might require explaining American contradictions to shareholders. Jesse watches from his living room as white teammates appear in magazine advertisements. They endorse everything from cigarettes to automobiles. Their faces beam from newspaper spreads, selling products to families who cheered Jesse's Berlin performances. Those same families apparently prefer purchasing recommendations from athletes who never embarrassed foreign dictators. Radio networks book Olympic champions for celebrity appearances. Jesse's invitation never arrives. Program directors explain audience research indicating listener preferences for certain types of athletic heroes. They choose guests whose stories inspire without creating uncomfortable questions about American equality. Department stores organize promotional events featuring Olympic stars. Jesse's participation would guarantee crowds. Instead, stores select athletes whose presence feels commercially viable. They avoid performers whose appearances might spark conversations about hypocrisy rather than patriotism. The exclusion operates through systematic silence rather than public pronouncement. No executive announces policies against black endorsers. No company issues statements explaining their selection criteria. The decisions happen in private meetings, implemented through quiet non-contact rather than dramatic rejection. Jesse's mailbox fills with bills while his Olympic teammates' mailboxes overflow with contracts. The disparity becomes impossible to ignore. Neighbors notice the absence of commercial vehicles delivering opportunity to America's most successful athlete. Local newspapers begin asking questions about corporate America's selective celebration. Athletic equipment companies court Jesse's former competitors for product endorsements. These same companies ignore the athlete whose performance dominated global headlines for weeks. Their marketing budgets support heroes whose victories require no explanation, whose success stories avoid mentioning American institutional failures. Jesse opens his mailbox one final time that week, finding only collection notices and municipal correspondence. No talent agency letters, no corporate partnership proposals, no entertainment industry opportunities. The silence speaks with deafening clarity about which Olympic heroes deserve commercial consideration and which remain too complicated for profit. His neighbors stop watching from windows. The absence of opportunity becomes routine rather than surprising. Jesse's exclusion from American commercial success settles into accepted reality. The gold medals on his mantle catch afternoon sunlight, representing achievements that changed history but generated no income. December 1936. Tropical Havana air sticks to Jesse's skin as he crouches at a makeshift starting line in Cuba. 50 yards ahead, a thoroughbred racehorse stamps impatiently. Gambling crowds press against rope barriers, shouting bets in Spanish and English. The fastest man on earth prepares to race an animal for grocery money. The horse's owner counts bills with theatrical flourish. Local promoters advertise the spectacle across Havana: Olympic champion versus champion horse. Jesse's appearance fee barely covers travel expenses. The crowd pays to watch America's greatest athlete reduced to carnival entertainment. Jesse removes his warm-up jacket, feeling the weight of 4 gold medals he cannot eat. The horse receives a 10-yard head start, insurance against the embarrassment of losing to a human. Photographers position themselves to capture the moment when Olympic glory transforms into public spectacle. The starter raises his pistol. Jesse's muscles remember Berlin's Olympic track, the roar of 100 Savon's Germans cheering reluctantly for American excellence. Now he crouches on Cuban dirt, preparing to outrun livestock for the entertainment of tourists seeking exotic diversions from their vacation routines. The gun fires. Jesse explodes forward while the horse gallops ahead, hooves throwing dirt clouds behind powerful legs. The crowd screams as human and animal race toward a finish line that represents completely different forms of victory. For the horse, instinct. For Jesse, survival. Jesse's strides eat ground with mechanical precision. His technique remains flawless despite the circumstances. The same form that dominated Olympic tracks now serves to prove that Olympic champions can outrun farm animals when rent money depends on the outcome. He crosses the finish line 3 steps ahead of the horse. The crowd cheers wildly, having witnessed the impossible made routine. Jesse raises his arms in mock celebration, understanding that this victory represents the deepest form of defeat. Olympic gold medals led to this: racing animals for applause and small bills. Local newspapers report the event as amusing entertainment rather than national tragedy. The world's fastest human reduced to circus performance generates laughter instead of outrage. American newspapers bury the story in sports sections, treating Jesse's desperation as quirky athletic novelty. Promoters approach Jesse after the race, offering similar exhibitions across Latin America. Race against motorcycles in Mexico, compete with baseball players in Venezuela. Each opportunity represents further distance from legitimate athletic competition and deeper descent into promotional sideshow. Jesse counts his appearance fee in a hotel room that evening. The money covers immediate needs, but solves nothing permanently. Tomorrow requires finding another spectacle, another willing audience, another degrading competition that converts Olympic excellence into temporary income. Back in America, corporate executives read about Jesse's horse racing with mixture of relief and satisfaction. His desperation validates their decision to avoid endorsement deals. His public humiliation confirms that certain athletes deserve exclusion from profitable partnerships. The horse racing becomes routine rather than shocking. Jesse travels from exhibition to exhibition, competing against animals and machines for crowds seeking unusual entertainment. Each performance further establishes his separation from legitimate commercial opportunities. His Olympic medals sit in hotel rooms across Latin America, tarnishing slowly in tropical humidity. Outside, crowds gather to watch the man who embarrassed Hitler race against creatures incapable of understanding the symbolism. Inside, that same man plans tomorrow's performance, calculating survival one spectacle at a time. 1955. Dwight Eisenhower finally invites Jesse to the White House as ambassador of sports. 19 years after Berlin. Nearly 2 decades of corporate rejection, exhibition races, and financial desperation end with a presidential handshake that feels both meaningful and insufficient. The invitation arrives by telegram, the same communication method Franklin Roosevelt never used to congratulate Jesse's Olympic victories. Jesse stands in his Cleveland living room, reading words that should have been written in 1936. The delay speaks louder than the recognition itself. Corporate America begins tentative reconsideration in the 1950s. Public relations firms offer Jesse speaking engagements about overcoming adversity. The same executives who ignored him for decades now discover his marketability as inspiration. His exclusion transforms into product. Ford Motor Company hires Jesse as personnel director for black employees. The position represents progress and limitation simultaneously. Jesse's achievements qualify him for corporate work, but only within carefully defined racial boundaries. He manages segregated success within integrated failure. Jesse opens his public relations firm, finally achieving financial stability through entrepreneurship rather than endorsement. The business succeeds because clients want association with Olympic glory without confronting the exclusion that followed. His story sells better when systematic rejection remains unmentioned. Television appearances begin in the late 1950s. Jesse tells sanitized versions of his Berlin experience, emphasizing triumph over Nazi ideology while avoiding American hypocrisy. Producers prefer heroic narratives that celebrate democracy rather than expose contradictions. The recognition feels fragile and conditional. Jesse's acceptance depends on his willingness to minimize discussion of exclusion. Corporate partners welcome his inspirational message, but discourage examination of discriminatory practices. Presidential honors accumulate slowly. Gerald Ford awards Jesse the Medal of Freedom in 1976, 40 years after Berlin. Each recognition acknowledges achievements while avoiding responsibility for exclusion. Corporate endorsements finally arrive in Jesse's 60s, when his athletic prime exists only in memory. Companies find safety celebrating aged heroes, whose victories feel safely historical. His commercial value emerges when his competitive threat disappears. The systematic exclusion never receives institutional acknowledgement. Corporate America simply begins including him without admitting previous exclusion or explaining policy changes. The silence continues, but with different objectives. Jesse's story becomes inspiration for overcoming obstacles, rather than examination of obstacles that shouldn't exist. His resilience gets celebrated, while institutions that created suffering avoid accountability. America honors Jesse's character while forgetting its own failure. His footsteps remain even when his name was almost forgotten. Please subscribe to the channel to help preserve the next story. Jesse dies in 1980, having achieved belated recognition and financial security. The corporate exclusion that dominated his prime years becomes footnote to his legacy. America remembers victories while forgetting systematic denial of opportunities. The 20-year wait demonstrates inclusion's fragility even for Olympic champions. Jesse's acceptance required social changes despite institutional resistance. His exclusion ended through evolution, not corporate revelation. His Berlin medals remain, tarnished but preserved. They represent both excellence and institutional failure. Jesse transcended limitations, but those limitations never acknowledged their contradictions or explained their grudging dissolution.